The year is 2006. A helicopter arrived at the maximum security Korydallos prison in Greece. The nearby guards assumed that the helicopter was just doing a spot inspection, but nothing could be more false.
Έναν άνδρα ο οποίος ανταποκρίνεται κατά προσέγγιση όσο το δυνατό περισσότερο στο πορτρέτο
που απογειώνει και οδηγεί στην ελευθερία τον διαβόητο δραπέτη Vassilis Paleokostas και τον συνεργό του Alket Rizai.
In the nearby jail cell, two inmates were waiting to get picked up. These inmates were Vassilis Paleokostas and Alket Rizai. Inside the helicopter were the pilot and Paleokostas' brother. Earlier, his brother had hijacked the helicopter and forced the pilot to approach the prison. After the helicopter landed in a nearby cemetery, Paleokostas and Rizai cruised away on their motorcycles, still wearing their prison clothing. This is the story of how the life of a shy Greek boy was transformed by his delinquency as well as his generosity, as he would later be known as the Greek Robin Hood. Vassilis, a quiet and introverted boy, as described by his father, spent the first 13 years of his life in Moskofito, a small village in central Greece, surrounded by mountains. He then moved to Trikala, a nearby town. While working his job at a cheese factory in Trikala, Vassilis experienced Greece's economy bloom as the country came closer and closer to joining the EU. Despite this, Vassilis noticed the disparity between the poor and the rich increasing as well. He had no real skills other than stealing to make a living because he suffered from his boss, being a wage slave at the cheese factory. He had been responsible for at least 27 robberies between 1979 and 1986, in which he mostly stole video camcorders. This all changed when he met a similar thief, Kostas Samaras. Dimitrios Gravanis, the town's chief plainclothes policeman, said the following: Vassilis was just a petty thief until he met Kostas Samaras, aka the artist. Vassilis' camcorder robberies turned into robberies of jewelry stores and banks along with his brother and Samaras. Paleokostas, however, was not your typical criminal. A lot of cash that he stole, he distributed among the poorer citizens. Because of this, the police's chase of Vassilis became an elaborate cat-and-mouse game. After his brother got arrested, Paleokostas attempted to free him in April of 1990 by driving a tank through the prison walls, before being caught and arrested himself. Less than a year later, he attempted and even succeeded in escaping himself using just some bedsheets. Just a year later, Vassilis and his gang committed the biggest robbery of a bank in Greek history to this day. At least 125 million drachmas, worth roughly 360,000 pounds, were stolen from a bank in Kalambaka. In a small town in the hills of Meteora, the three robbers entered the bank wearing suits and sunglasses while carrying automatic weapons. While the artist blocked the people's path with a stolen truck, the two other men started filling up their duffel bags full of cash from the safe. While escaping in his stolen Audi, after the siren started going off as the police were chasing them, Vassilis was tossing cash out of the car window to the local citizens. Because of this robbery, Greek banks increased their security and cash was slowly getting replaced by credit cards. Paleokostas thus decided to stay away from robberies for a while. Instead, he focused his attention on a kidnapping that would take place 5 years later. On Friday, December 15th, 1995, at 8:15 in the morning, after Alexander Haitoglu, a billionaire factory owner, went for a short drive, he was swiftly hustled in a jeep by Paleokostas and his brother. He would only be freed if the two brothers got 260 million drachma in return. This might sound like a terrifying experience, but Haitoglu actually described the event pretty casually after the fact. I was not scared for myself. Actually, I enjoyed some wide-ranging discussions with the kidnappers, he said. This kidnapping was followed by an extraordinary 3-year police chase against Paleokostas, during which he continued with his Robin Hood-esque activities. He distributed some of the ransom to the poorer and homeless communities, and sometimes he even gave more than the people needed. In 1999, Paleokostas got caught by the police and thrown into jail after a car crash that he caused by driving while high. A 25-year sentence. At last, Paleokostas' delinquency had come to an end. Or so the local authorities thought. Only 4 years later, he had to be placed in Korydallos, one of Europe's most notorious jails, because guards had found an elaborate and detailed escape plan inside his cell. In 2006, he got locked up with an Albanian hitman named Alket Rizai. The two men decided that they had had enough and began planning their escape. June 4th, 2006. It was finally time for Paleokostas and Rizai to be free again. At this point, 2,358 days had passed since the day he was jailed. At around 6:15 in the evening, near Athens, a commercial helicopter pilot named Karikis was boarding his white AS-355N Eurocopter. The former military pilot who flew pleasure trips over Athens was threatened by hijackers with a grenade and a pistol and was forced to head to the prison courtyard to pick up the two criminals. Within 10 minutes, the chopper was inside of the prison and reducing its speed to about 70 miles per hour. "We considered hiring a pilot, but a scared pilot is better," said Rizai. "A scared pilot is prepared to take more risks." The guards, who assumed that the prison authority was arriving for a spot inspection, straightened their uniforms. As the helicopter touched down in the exercise yard outside Wing E, the downrush from its rotors created a thick brown dust cloud. When the guards had figured out that they were not from their troop, a guard yelled over the high-pitched roar of the turbine that there was a breakout. The surrounding guard hesitated shooting right away, but next to the prison was a residential street where kids were playing. After finally landing in a nearby cemetery, Vassilis handed the panic-stricken pilot some worry beads before escaping with Rizai on two stolen motorcycles while still wearing their prison clothing. Despite the motorcycles being found later by the police, the two criminals were nowhere to be seen. 3 months later, on the 8th of September 2006, Rizai was finally caught and subsequently arrested by the police. Nikos Paleokostas was arrested just a few days later after a police car chase in which his car had turned over and he broke his left arm. And finally, in the summer of 2008, Vassilis Paleokostas was arrested. But the two men didn't stop there. Only 2 years later they had kidnapped George Milonas, a Greek millionaire. This was Paleokostas' second kidnapping. But just like the aforementioned kidnapping victim hijacked, Milonas also described his kidnapping in a fairly positive manner. 12 million euros had been stolen from Milonas before the two men let him go. One day, on August 2nd, 2008, Paleokostas was settling down for the day, planning to watch the movie Heat, when a SWAT team smashed through the door after the police had traced him. It is worth mentioning that Paleokostas had his fair share of supporters. At his pre-trial hearing in 2009, farmers, peasants and even some young women had shown up outside of the courtroom. Next, something happened that would take this case to a whole nother level. Paleokostas and Rizai had escaped from the prison a second time. Rizai's girlfriend Sula Mitropia plays a key role in this attempt. During a pre-trial hearing, she had slipped a mobile phone wristwatch in Rizai's pocket while dramatically embracing him after his sentencing. Just one day before Paleokostas' trial was planned to start, their plan began. Just 45 minutes after Mitropia had called Rizai via his watch, a helicopter was once again arriving and descending at the jail. This time, however, the prison guards were done passively standing by and were prepared to start shooting as they sounded the prison alarm. A woman had threatened the pilot into picking up Paleokostas and Rizai. This woman was alleged to be Mitropia, however, she denies this accusation to this day. Paleokostas and Rizai can be seen crouching behind boxes before heading off to the helicopter. Because the helicopter was being shot at by the guards and even got hit a couple of times in its gas tank, it had to make an emergency landing before the three of them ran off together. The second escape had proved to be a success for Paleokostas only, as Rizai and his girlfriend Mitropia were later arrested. The CIA had even set up a new team of intelligence officers in Athens called the Invisibles, who was tasked with hunting down the criminals that were most difficult to catch. In 2009, Paleokostas became their prime suspect. Vassilis was hiding and escaping from the police, which he also confirms. There were thousands of policemen wherever I turned my eye, not to mention the undercover ones. To this day, Vassilis Paleokostas is still on the run from the Greek authorities, being one of the most infamous criminals in Greece.